But having a goal like that does help you focus yourself. So if you know that there is something important you want to do in life, you won't let other people distract you. So let's say you're in school and maybe there's some people around you who just want to waste time. And as it's said in hadith, when you're wasting time, sometimes shaitan comes in and tries to get you to do wrong things. So they're dragging you the other way, but then you think, wait a minute, first of all, I know this is not right. And second of all, I have a goal which is much more important, so I'm going to focus on what is important. It does help keep you going the right way. And of course, you have to remember, whatever it is that you work for in life, whether it's just being a good person and trying to follow what is true, or whether it's a specific goal, like being a fireman or being a doctor, this is something that will stay with you your entire life. Whereas the people you're around right now, many of them will not be there forever, especially when you're in school. This is why it's so difficult for younger people. When we become adults, usually we have a lot more control over our lives. We can control our friends and we can move from city to city. But when you're younger, especially when you're going to school, you don't have a choice about your classmates and your teachers and so forth. They might be really nice and helpful people, or sometimes there might be some difficulties with them. I don't need to say what difficulties are. You, I'm sure, all know about them. But the point is, you just have to be patient with that, because you won't be going to school there forever. You will move on, they will move on, and whatever they've done at that age in their life, that's going to affect what happens to them later. And whatever you've done is going to affect what happens to you later. So once you become old like me, you start looking back at all the people you went to school with, say 20 years ago, and you see what's happened to everyone. And those people who were really focused on a goal and had good morals, they've usually become quite successful. Even if the other students liked them or didn't like them, they've usually accomplished something. And then you see some, they haven't been so successful, even if they were just, even if they were popular, because they were not using their time well. Maybe they didn't do well in exams, they didn't study, they didn't go on, etc. So ultimately, what you do now will affect your future. So think about the bigger picture, and if you are having problems, it's good to be patient, inshallah. I think we're having to be patient with me too. So we will go much quicker through the rest of the steps. What was step number 1?
Know what is 100% right.
I'm just going to ask that guy because I think he doesn't get to say much. Yeah, so know your beliefs. So the second one though, by the way, I meant just for right now. I'm sure you get to say quite a lot ordinarily. But anyway, the second one is actually standing up for what you believe in, because you know there's quite a difference. For example, we had a very good speech this morning about Hur Riyahi. Now he had a choice. He knew what was right. He knew it was good to follow Imam Hussein alayhi salam, but he had the choice to actually act on that or not. He could have stayed with the army and said, yes, I know it's bad to be fighting Imam Hussein, but it's a big sacrifice and I'm a big commander and I don't really want to risk my family and my property by joining, and my life by joining Imam Hussein. Would it have been the right decision for Hur to stay on the side of Ibn Sa'ad and Ibn Ziyad, on the bad side?
No.
No, that was the wrong decision. But it was very difficult for him to make that decision. It's very scary when you have to make a big decision, and there were so many people on the bad side, you know, like all of these soldiers who came to Karbala to fight Imam Hussein, a very bad thing. And there were only a few people on the good side. Imam Hussein had a very small group of companions. So he had so much pressure to stay on the wrong side, but he was willing to stand up against that and go to the right side. So he actually went through this step. Not only did he know what he believed and what he wanted to be in life, but also he was willing to stand up for it too. And Allah Ta'ala in the Holy Quran, He promises us that He will help us if we stand up for what we know is true. And He doesn't say He might help us, He says He will help us. And we know the Holy Quran is true, that all of it Allah Ta'ala said, so we can't doubt it. He says that we will give assistance to our messengers, first of all. None of us are prophets and messengers, of course, but also to those who believe in the life of this world and also in the next world, when people are bearing witness over what has happened in this world. So we have to remember that as long as we are choosing to do the right thing, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will help us. Okay, that was 2 things. Number 3, we should think about why certain things are bad choices or are the wrong things to do. Why are they wrong? Why are they bad? Why are they destructive? For instance, bless you, I'm trying to think of some wrong things to discuss. One of the things that is quite wrong that we see quite a bit of in the UK is drinking. There's a lot of alcohol here and you can't really avoid seeing it. But because you see it, you see why it's such a negative thing. There's no person who's sane who's going to say it's good to drink. Now they don't make it illegal because people want to do it, but it's quite obvious that there's a lot of bad things that happen with it. People, they act crazy, they start fights, they crash their cars into other people, they ruin their families, etc. So, if this is something you have to face, you can think about it, and logically it's quite clear that it's something you shouldn't do, because it's bad. Even if Allah Ta'ala didn't say that drinking is haram, you can see and understand that it's bad. There are some things that sometimes we don't understand, especially when we're younger, and we come to understand them when we get older. For example, there's certain things in Sharia that are halal or wajib or haram. We might not understand why they're so important when we're younger, but we get to understand them more as we get older. This is just due to life experience. For example, for me, hijab was one of them. When I was 14, for example, I was willing to accept that hijab is wajib, but I really couldn't have explained why it's important. I didn't personally really feel, oh, this is such an important thing. I mean, I accepted this is divine revelation and we should do it, but it's different to actually understand why it's important. This is something that happened over the decades since then. So sometimes as we get older, we understand more about why Allah Ta'ala ordains certain things, because we know that He does have us do the things that are good for us, but sometimes we understand it immediately, or sometimes we don't. But it's always good to consider that too, and that helps you make the right choices. So that was 3 things, and I think I've probably been talking for a while, to be honest. Does anyone have any time indication here? Because I like to keep to my time, but I wasn't really watching the clock properly at the beginning. Sorry? Okay, so we'll go through these last couple quite quickly. Number 4, I'm lucky because I don't have to talk about it because someone else also talked about it today. And that is choosing good friends and good people to be around. Now, it took me a long time in life to realize that you actually can choose your friends. I thought friends that just happened and you either are friends or you aren't friends. But now, I've realized it is true that you do select who you decide should be your friend. So the important thing is to select friends who will be good friends, who will be good influences. And of course the other way around, as was being discussed today, to be a good friend as well. It is said in many of the hadith we have, that you should always pick good friends. And it's better to be alone than to be around bad influences or immoral people, because they affect you. You can't help it. It's natural. When you're around people who are doing something wrong, either you feel pressured to do it, or at the very least you start to think it's normal and it's okay because they're doing it. So you should be very careful about your friends. But on the other, and it's okay to be alone, incidentally, if you can't find good friends. Sometimes this is life. Life can be very difficult. But of course, it's better to be around good people and good influences than it is to be alone. So if you have to choose between having bad friends and being alone, which one is better?
Alone.
Yeah. But if you have to choose between having good friends and being alone, which is better? Yeah, and of course this is something Islam emphasizes quite a bit, as was mentioned in the speech. And this will help you a lot too. So if you do now, or maybe later in life, like maybe if you go on to uni, for example, if you are around some people who you feel are not a good influence, you do have to make the decision to separate them from your life. Otherwise, they can drag you the wrong direction, and it's very sad to see that happening. And also, one other important thing to remember is sometimes it's hard to find good friends, and we have to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will grant our du'as. So if you're having difficulty finding good friends, you can pray and you can do du'a and ask Allah to grant you good friends, and inshallah He will respond to your du'as. So that's 4 things, but that does lead to the last thing, which is simply to remember Allah and to ask for His help. He always promises to help us, and so if we're having difficulty with something in life, whether it's peer pressure or something else, or if we're not sure what to do, sometimes we get confused and we don't know exactly what we believe is right, we can ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide us, and He's usually very quick in guiding people. And remembering Allah will help us to be successful in all parts of life too. So that was, very briefly, 5 steps to helping with bad peer pressure. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask for each of these 5 steps from different madrasa-aged people. So can we have step 1 from over here? Anyone remember? Yes?
Choose which one's right and which one's wrong.
Yeah, so know what is right and what is wrong. So first you have to understand that inside yourself. Okay, next step.
Stand up for what you believe in.
Right, yes, like Horul Riyahi, stand up for it. Next step.
There's some students here as well.
Oh, I'm sorry, I don't mean to exclude you. See, everyone looks like adults over here. MashaAllah, you are
All these
adults
students
anyway.
should know the 5 by now.
Okay, step 3.
Not yet.
I think I'm doing a dismal job. I should fire myself if you can't give me step 3 somewhere. Okay, from the audience too? Okay, so we have knowing what you believe, standing up for what you believe, and then, yes? Yeah, oh, mashallah, very good memory over here. Yeah, so thinking about why something is wrong. And of course, it's always good to remember something which is narrated from a number of people. It's also attributed to the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And that is sometimes we can learn how to be in life and how to act in life just by seeing people doing wrong things. Because when we see people doing things that we dislike or that we know are wrong, then we learn not to do these things. And this is one way to become better people. Unfortunately, sometimes this is very applicable advice in life. So that's number 3, thinking about why certain things are wrong. What else? Yeah, picking good friends. So staying away from friends who are a bad influence and trying to be around friends who will encourage you to do good things, like practice your madrasa speech. And the last one? What? Yes, so ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for help, and He will help all of us. So I very much enjoyed discussing this topic with you, and I hope some of it is useful. And I'm looking forward to seeing the rest of the program too. Thank you very much. Salawat.